You know what's interesting? While most people are out there collecting friends like Pokemon cards, there's a whole group of us who feel most at peace when we're completely alone. And no, we're not talking about antisocial hermits living in caves, though. Honestly, that doesn't sound half bad sometimes. If you've ever felt that deep exhale of relief when plans get canceled, or if coming home to an empty house feels like slipping into a warm bath after a long day, this video is for you. Because feeling safer alone is not about hating people. It is about understanding yourself in a way that most people never take the time to explore. Today, we're diving deep into the psychology behind why some of us recharge in solitude, why being alone doesn't mean being lonely, and what science actually tells us about people who prefer their own company. Stick around, because we also go into bust some myths and share some surprising research that might just validate everything you've been feeling. So grab your favorite drink, get comfortable in your favorite spot alone, obviously, and let's get into this. First things first, let's clear up the biggest misconception right out of the gate. Being alone and being lonely are not the same thing. Not even close. Loneliness is that aching feeling of disconnection, like you're standing outside a window looking in at everyone else having a good time. It's involuntary, and it hurts. Studies show that chronic loneliness can be as harmful to your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Yeah, it's that serious. But choosing to be alone? That's a completely different animal. That's solitude. That's intentional. And for many people, it's absolutely essential for their mental health and well-being. Think of it this way. Loneliness is starving when you desperately want food. Solitude is choosing to fast because it makes you feel better. One is deprivation. The other is a conscious choice. Dr. Esther Buchholz, a psychologist who literally wrote the book on solitude, describes it as a constructive state of engagement with oneself. When you're in true solitude, you're not running away from people, you're running toward yourself. And that's actually incredibly healthy. The people who feel safer alone have often figured out something that takes others a lifetime to learn, that you can be your own best company. Now, let's talk about the brain stuff, because this is where it gets really fascinating. Back in the 1960s, psychologist Hans Eysenck proposed something revolutionary. He suggested that introverts and extroverts have fundamentally different nervous systems. And modern neuroscience has backed him up in some pretty cool ways. Research using brain imaging has shown that introverts have more activity in the frontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for planning, problem-solving, and internal thought. Their brains are literally wired to look inward. Extroverts, on the other hand, show more activity in areas associated with processing external stimuli and seeking rewards. But here's the kicker. It's also about how your brain processes dopamine. Dopamine is that feel-good neurotransmitter that makes you feel rewarded and happy. Extroverts have a stronger response to dopamine, so they need more external stimulation, more people, more noise, more excitement to feel satisfied. Introverts, their brains are more sensitive to dopamine. They get overwhelmed by too much stimulation more quickly. But they're also more responsive to acetylcholine, a different neurotransmitter associated with the pleasure of turning inward, thinking, and concentrating. So when an introvert says they need to be alone to recharge, they're not being dramatic. Their brain literally processes social interaction differently. Being around people, even people they love, actually depletes their energy reserves faster. Solitude isn't just preferred. It's necessary for recovery. And this isn't about being shy or socially anxious, by the way. Plenty of introverts are confident and socially skilled. They just find it exhausting in a way that extroverts simply don't. But biology isn't the whole story. For many people who feel safer alone, there's also a psychological component rooted in their past experiences. Here's something therapists see all the time. People who grew up in chaotic, unpredictable, or emotionally volatile environments often develop what's called a solitary attachment style. If home was a place, where you never knew what mood someone would be in, where you had to constantly read the room just to feel safe, then being alone becomes your sanctuary. Think about it. When you're alone, you don't have to manage anyone else's emotions. You don't have to walk on eggshells. You don't have to perform or pretend or protect yourself from sudden emotional weather changes. You control the environment completely. Psychologist Dr. Jonas Webb, who specializes in childhood emotional neglect, talks about how some people learn early on that their emotional needs won't be met by others, or worse, that expressing needs leads to punishment or rejection. So they become self-sufficient, sometimes to a fault. They learn to regulate their own emotions, entertain themselves, and solve their own problems. This can actually be a strength. These individuals often develop incredible resilience, creativity, and self-awareness. But the downside is that they may struggle to let people in, even when those people are trustworthy. There's also the element of betrayal or disappointment. Maybe you've been let down by people you trusted. Maybe friendships turned toxic or relationships ended badly. Each negative experience can reinforce the belief that people are unpredictable and potentially harmful. But you're reliable. You won't disappoint yourself or betray your own trust. It's a coping mechanism that makes total sense when you understand the context. Let's talk about something that probably hits home for a lot of you: overthinking. People who prefer solitude are often deep thinkers. And I mean deep. They analyze, reflect, and process everything at multiple levels. Social interactions aren't just casual exchanges. They're complex puzzles requiring constant analysis. Did I say the right thing? Why did they look at me that way? What did they really mean by that comment? Should I have laughed there? Was I too quiet? Too talkative? This constant mental processing is exhausting. It's just like running a dozen computer programs in the background while trying to appear normal on the surface. And when you're alone, you can finally close all those programs. The mental noise stops. Solitude offers what psychologists call cognitive restoration. It's like hitting the reset button on your brain. Without the constant input and analysis required by social situations, your mind can wander, daydream, and process things at its own pace. Research from the University of Michigan found that people perform better on cognitive tasks after spending time in natural, quiet environments compared to busy, stimulating ones. Solitude literally helps your brain function better. For overthinkers, being alone isn't lonely, it's peaceful. It's the only time when the world makes sense because you're not trying to decode everyone else's behavior while managing your own. And here's something beautiful. Solitude is often where creativity happens. Some of the greatest artists, writers, scientists, and thinkers throughout history were people who craved and protected their alone time. Virginia Woolf wrote about needing a room of one's own. Einstein took long, solitary walks. Nikola Tesla worked best in isolation. Your need for solitude might just be your creative brain demanding the space it needs to do its best work. Now, let's address the elephant in the room, or rather, the smartphone in your pocket. We live in the most hyperconnected era in human history. You can be reached 24/7. Social media means you're constantly bombarded with everyone else's highlight reels. Group chats ping incessantly. Your boss can Slack you at 9 p.m. Your aunt tags you in questionable memes. For people who feel safer alone, this is basically a nightmare. Dr. Elaine Aron's research on highly sensitive people, which overlaps significantly with introverts, shows that about 15 to 20% of the population has a more sensitive nervous system. They process sensory information more deeply and get overstimulated more easily. In our modern world, that means you're not just dealing with in-person social demands. You're dealing with a constant stream of digital social demands, too. And there's no escape unless you actively create it. This is why so many people are experiencing what's being called digital fatigue or Zoom exhaustion. Even virtual social interaction takes energy. especially when you can see yourself on screen and are hyper-aware of how you're coming across. Choosing to be alone, truly alone, phone off, notifications silenced, has become an act of self-preservation. It's not antisocial. It's self-care in an overstimulated world. And here is something validating. Research published in the British Journal of Psychology found that highly intelligent people actually get less satisfaction from socializing frequently. The study suggested that smart people are better in adapting to ancestral challenges through abstract reasoning, meaning they're more self-sufficient and less dependent on social bonding for happiness. So, if people have ever made you feel weird for preferring solitude, you can smugly cite research suggesting it might actually be correlated with intelligence. You're welcome. Let's get real for a moment about both the benefits and the potential pitfalls of preferring solitude. The benefits are actually pretty incredible. People who spend quality time alone often have better self-awareness and understanding of their own values and goals, enhanced creativity and problem-solving abilities, stronger ability to regulate their own emotions, less susceptibility to peer pressure and external influence, deeper, more meaningful relationships because they choose quality over quantity, greater appreciation for the time they do spend with others. Solitude can be a space for growth, healing, and self-discovery. It's where you figure out who you are when nobody's watching, when you're not performing for anyone else. But and this is important, there is such a thing as too much isolation. Humans are social creatures at our core, even the most introverted among us. Complete isolation over long periods can lead to increased anxiety and depression, difficulty maintaining social skills, potential development of unhealthy thought patterns without outside perspective, physical health impacts from lack of social connection. The key is balance and self-awareness. Ask yourself honestly, am I choosing solitude because it nourishes me? Or am I using it to avoid dealing with fear, trauma, or difficult emotions? There's a difference between healthy solitude and avoidance. Healthy solitude energizes you, helps you process emotions, and allows you to show up more authentically when you do engage with others. Avoidance leaves you feeling stuck, disconnected, and unable to form meaningful connections even when you want them. If you find that your preference for being alone is actually rooted in social anxiety, fear of rejection, or past trauma, it might be worth talking to a therapist. You deserve to have the choice to connect with others when you want to, not to feel trapped in isolation by fear. So here's the bottom line. If you feel safer alone, you're not broken. You're not weird. You're not destined for a life of loneliness. You might just be someone whose brain is wired differently, who processes the world more deeply, who needs space to think and breathe and exist without the weight of social expectations. In a world that constantly tells us we need to be more social, more connected, more out there, choosing solitude is actually pretty brave. It's saying, I know what I need, and I'm not going to apologize for it. The most important relationship you'll ever have is with yourself. And if you need time alone to nurture that relationship, that's not just okay, it's wise. So the next time someone asks why you're not more social, or why you turned down another invitation, or why you prefer staying home, you don't owe them an elaborate explanation. You're not being rude. You're being authentic. And that, my friend, is something to be celebrated. Thanks for spending this time alone with me today. If this resonated with you, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your experiences. And hey, if you want more content exploring the psychology of being human in all its complicated glory, make sure to subscribe. Until next time, enjoy your solitude. You've earned it.